Love it. Um, okay, folks, welcome to another episode of Better You. I am back today again with one of my really cool friends. She's here. We're going to talk about some really exciting topics. I know you folks met Andrea before. And Andrea, how's everything going? Are you already all set for the holidays?
Yeah, more or less. Things are good. Kind of all geared up, getting ready for next week is my last week of the year. So finishing early.
Right. As a salespeople, we hate December because all the buyers, they go away and they don't come back until first week of January. So we have to wait for our contracts to be signed in January. So I totally, I do not align very well with your sentiment of life in December.
Yeah, I know for sales, December is busy and frustrating.
Yeah. And I don't know if you felt, we just had an earthquake, 6.0, and it was pretty exciting earthquake. My whole desk just shook. So, Andrea, first, I'm really enjoying your new LinkedIn posts. I know you're very active on LinkedIn, and I know you were very active or still active on Instagram. Thank you so much for putting your voice out, because a lot of people, they don't do it. And you have wealth of experience working with so many people as an executive coach. So we need more people like you who can share voice without charging too much, slash we can learn from those little snippets on LinkedIn and social media, and then pursue, the bigger engagement where you can add more value into our life. So today's topic, it's a very interesting topic because, I grew up in India, and there's a line in India, my mom, or all the moms, to be honest, used it. It says, it's related to cooking, what I'm going to say, because my mom used to cook a lot, and I always underestimated that, hey, mom, this is, like, I don't want to eat this. This food is not delicious. So she will always say that, Ghar ki Murgi, Daal, Barabar. So Ghar is a Hindi word for home, and Murgi is a chicken. And dal is a lentil, because chicken is more expensive than lentils. So my mom always used this line, and I'm sure a lot of Indian folks, they know what I'm saying, that as you have something at home, as I'm in your life, as I'm giving you a cooked food, you don't appreciate it enough. So then what I noticed that in our personal lives, when we start dating, we are very excited about first 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, honeymoon period. Then eventually we settle down in a relationship, and then we start criticizing, start nagging, start saying stuff, and start pinpointing stuff, right? In the same way, what I have noticed that in the corporate world, there's the same behavior I have experienced. It may not, but people may not experience this in a large organizations, because large organizations, they already have HR processes in place, more red tape, more processes, more people. But in early stage startups, when you are only 2-3 people company, and suddenly you bring somebody from outside, which is the person who's not a co-founder or founder, and then this person comes in, and he or she puts all of his or her efforts building the foundation for the company. And then first 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year maximum, founders are very excited. But then this person is, let's say, sort of a lead magnet to hire more people into the company, because you brought this amazing person who is attracting all the new talent. Because it's very hard sometimes for early stage startups to hire top performers, because top performers always feel that if there is already someone there who's not a co-founder and a top performer, then people will start coming in. Otherwise, it's very hard to bring a good talent. And this is what I have experienced, that startups, they always struggle with. So what I want to focus this discussion on, that what is that mindset of founders and leaders, so-called leaders, or who are on the path to learn leadership, and how can they recognize this behavior? And once they recognize this behavior, how they can fix it, right?
Yeah.
So what I did was, I didn't really know the English meaning of Ghar ki Murgi Dal Barabar. Then I went to ChatGPT, I got on Google, I searched multiple articles, a lot of stuff here and there. Then I found this line, it's called familiarity breeds contempt. right? And this is what this is what we're going to focus on this episode. So let's start with your take on this. Ghar ki murgi dal barabar. How do you feel about it? Do you think it happens in corporate life? I know it happens in personal life. What's your take on it?
Yeah. This is a really interesting topic. I don't really hear people talk about all that much. So, a big part of what I do is we call it help people be more human at work or embrace their humanity. And sometimes it's not always exactly clear to people what that means, but this is one of those things, right? That's very universal across all cultures. It's in your personal life. It's in your work life. It's in startups. It is in big corporations. I see it all the time. And what I think the core of it is, my take is a little bit different than familiarity breeds contempt, which I think is part of it. But the other part is that we idealize people. We're not really seeing them for who they are in all of their humanity and all of their positives, with all of their challenges, with their skills, with, where they could learn. And when we hire somebody or when we start dating somebody kind of the same way, we're like, this person is amazing. They're perfect. There's nothing wrong with them. They're going to be everything I need in the world. They're going to, we're going to get married, or we're going to hit 100 million in sales, or whatever we're trying to do. And we cannot see the reality of the human that we're working with. And so a big part of what I work with people on is how to see their own humanity, what's real, and how to see the humanity in other people. Really, it's just like what's real. And so when we hire people with this very idealistic, optimistic version of them, then when we start seeing what's real over time, which eventually always happens, we're super disappointed.
Yeah.
And when we start the process of this is a real person who's not perfect, and we work with them over the next, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, knowing that we don't have this like crash in expectation and understanding, because we knew all along that this is a real person who's not perfect. Does that make sense?
100%. And, I wrote a Medium article about it to raise more awareness. Because in Indian culture, this is a very normal statement. And then as a fun statement, we always use it. And I totally aligned what you just said. One of the key points which I highlighted, when this happens, this phenomena happens, the overexposure and the loss of novelty. As we meet first time, and then we start to, spend more time with this person, we see the good, we overlook the bad, and then we are excited by the unknown because we don't know, what this person is going to do or say. And then as we get more familiar with this person, the novelty wears off, right? Which is a sad part. And because, as you said, right, because then we start comparing this individual with other people as we hire more people in the company, right? And I think another thing which I want to highlight, talk to you about this in this same topic, the criticism. Initially the things that we really, really liked about this person, and now we are comparing this individual with other people. There is this mindset of criticism. Look how well this person is presenting. Oh, look how well this other person said the same thing in a different way. So, Andrea, what is that mindset behind the scene? As a leader, people especially who are in the management role, what do they think about when it comes to comparing two individuals who are top performers and also trying to do the same task, but they have a different style? And I think this is where I am seeing a pattern with the founders, where they are comparing early employees, and they are causing a serious churn in the company.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is still related to this idealization process. A lot of founders think that they're going to hire someone and they're going to save the world. They're going to save the company, right? I'm going to hire this person. They're going to sell all the things and we're going to be fine. Or whatever, right? This person is going to build the product in the way that's going to be amazing and we're going to be saved. And so they put this sort of like savior perspective on somebody, which nobody can live up to. And then if they start failing, they start looking around for another savior. Oh, maybe this guy's the savior, or maybe it's this guy. And then they start doing this comparison thing and they start criticizing. And oftentimes too, like there's this whole mindset that criticizing is motivating, right? And it's not. Nobody has ever been motivated by criticism. And if they are, it's very temporary, it's very toxic, but it's a very important part of our culture that people think is true. It also really, like what I think you're illustrating here is it erodes teamwork, it destroys trust, it really pits people against each other, and each person is trying to be the one that doesn't get criticized or the one that saves the company, instead of how can these two people work together with their different strengths and weaknesses and be like a super high-powered team together. Even if they're not working super closely together, like, you know, maybe you take these clients and I'm taking these clients or prospects. But I think that the sort of early stage leadership way is, well, this is going to be motivating by criticizing them and pitting them against each other. I just don't see it working.
You know, very interesting. I want to actually share the story with you. I was working for this startup, and my boss, you know, I mean, almost the same age, same experience, but the individual doesn't come from a same background because our background was totally different. And we sat down in a conference room. It was our weekly one-on-one. We talked about some deals, you know, as I'm in sales. So suddenly, other two founders, they walked into the same room during the same time, and then I was working on this particular deal, and suddenly me and my boss, we said, "Oh, actually, we are having a one-on-one." And then those two founders, they said, "Oh, that's okay. We'll just sit down and listen. We are bored. We just want to sit down with you." And they sat down. My boss continued the conversation, and this deal, which I was trying to close, was not going really well. And my boss, you know, she raised the voice, and here and there, I don't know, it's just like a weird conversation. You know, when two people are in the room, they're talking to each other, there's a different tone, different vibe, different way of feeling. But now suddenly there are two other people who are not part of this conversation, but this individual continue the conversation the same way, and with a more higher tone. Then after the one-on-one, I gave a feedback to my boss. I said, "Listen, I didn't like the way you were talking to me in front of other two founders because your tone was really harsh." And then she said, "What do you mean? Well, how do you expect me to change my tone?" I said, "Listen, you know, during the one-on-one, we are having open conversation. It stays between us. I take the feedback, you take the feedback, we'll move on." And then, funny enough, she said to me, she said, "I was criticizing you to motivate you." And I said, "Listen, I am a self-motivated person. I am a top performer, and I have done this in last 6-7 years so many times. I felt that you were micromanaging me. You were criticizing me in front of two other people now. And I don't know how those two people are going to feel, whatever you're saying. You were being disrespectful to me." So I actually want to highlight what you're saying, that this confusion of, hey, I am criticizing you, or I am micromanaging you, or to inspire you. Andrea, do you know, by any chance, do you know that behavior of the leader, like what they think behind the scene, and how can they fix it?
Yeah, there was this blog post or Medium article or something a long time ago called "The Ineffectiveness of Criticism." I'll have to see if I can find it and send it to you. Maybe you can link to it or something. But it's basically all about how like criticism doesn't work, to your point, but there's still this overwhelming idea that it does work. So Brene Brown has done a lot of research on shame, and a lot of criticism is about creating shame. And what she has found in her many years of research is that there is no benefit to shame at all. Like it is a completely unproductive function. Or if there is something valuable about it, we haven't discovered it yet through research. So because basically it shuts people down, it freaks them out, it makes them go inwards and not be able to do the thing that they're trying to do. So actually, by creating shame in somebody, by criticizing them or embarrassing them or whatever, you're actually making it harder for that person to succeed instead of easier. So this just like hasn't made its way all the way through to popular culture and leadership culture yet. I'm hopeful that it will, but we can do so much better by building somebody up, by understanding their problems, by encouraging them in their strengths, by asking them where they need help and support, and having them leave that meeting like, wow, like I can actually do this, or I have the support in the places where I'm struggling to move forward, instead of shame sort of shrinks us and we're like, well, now I don't have support and I still have this big problem of trying to close this deal, whatever we're trying to do, which is worse than where we started.
Actually, I want to share something with you. So, my daughter my daughter is going to college now. So so I grew up in India. So when she started going to school in US, when she was born in US, so I was very interested to understand US school system. So I said, my daughter's name is Jasmine. I said, Jasmine, so this is your grades. Do you know by any chance what's the grade of your friend? She said, no, she does not. I said, do you care? She said, sure. But I said, and then she asked me, she said, Dad, why are you asking me all this? Because in India, during my days in India, 1990s, school system was that your teacher will say your grade in front of 80, 90, or 100 students. And now either you are D, you are A, B, C. And then now as a kid, I was already filtering out people I really want to hang out with or I don't want to hang out with. And then I already was figuring out in my head who's going to bully me because I got C and this person got A. And then, as I started learning more and more about how US works in comparison with India when it comes to school, it was very clear to me the shaming piece. I think this is something we learned in our life growing up in India, that if you make people more shameful, they will do better. But I think there's a damage as a human being. There's a damage that we go through. And, we are in Bay Area. Bay Area is majority of folks are Asians and Indians, and especially tech world. There are a lot of Indians out there. And I'm not generalizing anything. I'm just saying people I have dealt with or people I have heard the stories that the same behavior, because these folks, they are not leaders. I mean, I really like Simon Sinek. He said about the leadership, he talks about leadership a lot. Like there are a lot of people, they think they're leader, but they're not leader because they don't know how to lead people. That goes back to the point, the shaming piece, right? If you're shaming somebody, your direct reportee, and now you think that you're inspiring that person, that's a bad leadership skill, right? Now, problem is other person doesn't know, so other person keep doing the same thing over and over with other people, and eventually that toxicity or the toxic work culture shows up, right? Now, so going back, joining the dots, as Steve Jobs said, you can understand life when you look backwards. And now I understood that part. Now my question to you is, what is that suggestion that you have for these folks who are early stage founders? They're trying to be a leader and they dived in, but now they need to learn and they don't have access to executive coach or they don't know how to do it. What is your suggestion for those folks, how they can improve themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tricky part is that most of our bosses in the past operated in this way, our leaders, right? And so we're just sort of copying what happened to us and thinking, I guess this is how it works, and trying it. And sometimes it works kind of. And so I think it's important for founders to know that like we're sort of in this new paradigm of leadership now, like maybe I don't really know, maybe like the last 5-10 years, where we're really starting to break away from this is just like the way things are in leadership. And there's a lot more research and there's a lot of really interesting work being done to figure out new and better ways of doing it. So I think just for founders to know that, like, read the research, read some of the books, like about people that have like done a lot of research like Brené Brown and are bringing that into the leadership world, and start to educate yourself around new and better ways of doing things, because that's going to be your competitive advantage, right? There are
Yeah.
people who are super smart and super hardworking. And if they're not finding like new ways of doing things, there's a lot of people that are super smart and super hardworking. You've got to find these competitive advantages. And where I see most founders fail is in building teams, getting people like really loyal and really high performing, and hiring too. I think hiring is really important. And this is a part of what we're talking about here. We haven't quite gotten to it yet, but I think for them to like get yourself a leadership education, whether it's through books or whether it's through free online classes or whatever, or mentors. And not every coach is expensive, right? Like some of us are and some of us aren't, but it all helps. So do what you can do, and it will really help your success as a leader, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, this is exactly the conversation I really wanted to have, and you're absolutely correct. One of the things when I was writing this article, I thought about this in detail, and of course, I leveraged ChatGPT to understand too. There's some few key points which I learned as I was thinking through this while watching YouTube's, reading articles, and one of the things it highlighted that. As a leader, now let's say if I'm leading somebody and now I want to change my behavior to improve the work culture setting, the first thing it says, practice gratitude. You regularly acknowledge other people, how good they are, people you hired, people you didn't hire, people who are part of your organization. The more you say thank you, the more you say, hey, thanks for doing this, or thanks for doing this way, that gratitude helps a lot to people to feel comfortable, right? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's sort of two parts to gratitude. There's the internal part of appreciating what somebody brings instead of looking for what's missing. Like instead of Niraj sold $1 bazillion in sales, I'm focused on like the 2 deals you didn't close, which is what a lot of leaders do. So you're looking at the parts to criticize, you're looking at the parts that are missing. If I focus on like, wow, he's only been here for 6 months and he's closed like all of these deals and it's been really amazing. Okay, a couple of them didn't work out. It doesn't mean we ignore those, but we might say like, I can really appreciate what he's bringing to the organization. And then there's the part of actually expressing it, which is also important because you need to feel appreciated and valued as well. But for leaders, they have to do both pieces. Sometimes people do gratitude like the whole point of it is just to tell you, but it's really about your like area of focus. Like, am I focusing on what's going well or am I focusing on what's going wrong?
Very nice. Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct on this part. And, one, you show off like fake gratitude versus genuinely a genuine gratitude, and other people can feel it. That's very important. And because I notice, again, I know I do talk about this, but the reason I talk about this in open media now, because these things happens all the time in the rooms, in the work settings. So, for example, taking credits from other people, you are doing all the work, and behind the scene, your boss is taking the credit, and then in front of you saying thank you, but in front of 2 other people, 10 other people not saying thank you to you. That also creates a really weird environment, because I have seen this where this individual acknowledged amazing work I was doing, but never acknowledged the amazing work I was doing in front of other people. So when I was leaving the company, as a feedback, I gave it to this individual. I said, you always said thank you to me in my one-on-ones, but you never said thank you or a great job or great work in front of the whole company or in front of the other people. And you won't believe, when I left this organization, this person called me and said, I never acknowledged that how amazing you were and you helped us to raise so much money. Now you're leaving. I just want to say this, that I learned a lot from you with the feedback you gave me. So again, right, one-on-one gratitude versus genuine gratitude, where you are acknowledging the behavior. Another thing which I was thinking in the same note, I have never tried this. I never had a chance. Maybe I would love to hear your thought. It says introduce novelty, introduce new experiences. Like as any relationship, personal and professional, like in personal relationships, we go and do date nights, we go out, try something new food, new places, new resort, and so on. In the work setting, what are the different things that we can think about? Like, creating the new environment, new challenges where everybody stays excited and motivated. I think that's also another topic to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I think the obvious piece of this is team building, where people go and do stuff together. And that's sort of the point of it, is like, if we have fun together, there will be more novelty and it will be more interesting. I think a little more sophisticated version of that is really just getting to know people, right? How many people that you're working with know all about Jasmine and what her beginning of college is like, and what your relationship is like with her, and what your experience of being a dad to her has been, and how is it changing now that she's like away at college, and how is your relationship as an adult father and an adult daughter starting to come together, and what would that tell them about you and who you are as a salesperson and as a leader in your organization. Like, people don't even think about that sort of thing. But that adds a whole other aspect of your humanity, and it's novel, and it makes me understand you differently and see you in a much more like realistic and fleshed out way, instead of just like Niraj the sales machine, where we just like get him on calls and he like turns out money, right? That's like this very narrow, not realistic version of who you are. You're all this other stuff. So I think people think we have to like go on this amazing trip with the whole sales team, or we have to go do this really fun activity, but it can be as simple as like going for a walk around the block and getting to know somebody in a different way.
Yeah. Oh, this is actually a very good point you highlighted. When you show genuine interest in other people's life, people feel that, yes, I belong to this place, I belong to this team, and I'm going to contribute more. And if everything is transactional, so it is transactional. Like, you will check out as soon as the transaction is done. I'm so glad you mentioned this. Like paying attention to what else is going on besides work in your life. So that creates that feeling that, yes, I am here. These people, they care about me, and I'm going to be here, right?
And this is the thing I want to highlight for startup founders, because they don't have the money to take the whole team to Hawaii or like some fancy thing, right? And it doesn't matter. I was talking to Ida yesterday, one of our mutual friends, about like what we used to do at my first startup. And like for Christmas presents, right? We didn't have money for huge Christmas bonuses. We were like, are people gonna be upset? Are they gonna feel like they wish they were somewhere else? And what we did was we bought personal Christmas gifts for everybody on the team. Like, we knew them well enough to know this person needed a TV for their room. They were like 24 and they didn't have very much money. This person needed a new laptop. This person needed a camera, like whatever. Like, I mean, it was a long time ago, cameras, but like when you know someone well enough to buy them a Christmas gift, none of them were over like $500 or something like that. If we had given them a $500 check, they would have been like, okay, that's kind of whatever. But the fact that we gave everybody these personal gifts, like it really touched them, and they remembered it for years. And people still reach out and are like, remember when you got us these things? With a small amount of money, like they felt really connected and cared about and known, right? And that's what humans want generally, whether it's in our home relationships, our friendships in the community, or at work. We want to be seen, we want to be known, we want to be appreciated and valued for what we bring. We don't want to be shamed, criticized, or like feel like we're just a transaction. So startup founders actually have an advantage here, because they don't have 10,000 employees. They have 3 or 10 or 50. And I think that they can be an overlooked opportunity.
Brilliant point. And that shows that you as a leader took time to find what this person or people in your team really likes, and you spend some time figuring out, and then you acknowledge that this is how I'm going to address this personal interest, right? So, Andrea, another thing which I saw in my personal experience with some founders is the lack of communication, lack of open communication. Putting things under the rug. Okay, there's a conflict. I don't want to do it. I don't have time, or I don't know how to do it. I don't have energy. I have no interest. Just put things under the rug. And as things goes under the rug over and over and over, it just piles up. And then eventually people start leaving the organization. Now, I just never understood this. I was really bad in handling conflicts, but eventually I learned as I started spending more time with more smarter people like you, and now I think to founders, I really want to highlight two things in this conversation with you, because as you do coach so many people, what is the challenge on addressing the conflict, and then how can we do better as a leader in understanding the challenges, conflicts, and then addressing those conflicts? Because lack of open communication, I strongly believe, is another challenge where you're not spending, or you're not saying enough to your top performers, to your people in your organization, and they don't feel that they belong there, and they leave.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's a really huge problem that I see in basically every organization. I mean, nobody likes having conflict, right? Almost nobody. Some people are more willing to have it, but it's not fun. And for some people, it's more challenging than others. So what I usually recommend with my clients is that they start noticing opportunities for conflict that they've missed, right? Like, where am I sort of smoothing things over or skipping over? And for a lot of people who are very goal oriented, they're pushing forward. We got to close this deal. Once we close this deal, once we hit this goal, we can deal with some of this stuff. And then they never really do it, because you're kind of like building on this foundation that's shaky, right? And so you've got to go in to that foundation and talk about stuff and be honest and have some conflict, and then decide if you want to build on it or not. Otherwise, you start building on this shaky foundation, everything collapses, and you have a lot of other big problems. So a big part of avoiding conflict is not being able to tolerate how you're feeling. So emotional intelligence, right? How am I feeling? You can have a list of emotion words. You can find it on the internet. You can find it on my website. Being able to recognize how we're feeling in a given moment is super helpful. Then we can start to notice, like, when did I skip having conflict? And when I skipped having conflict, or like I call it leaning away from conflict, how am I feeling? And we can start to see the patterns in our behavior and start to recognize it. At some point, we start to see, wow, I can tell when there's conflict, and I'm going, shoop. At the beginning, we don't even know we're doing it. It's just like automatically doing other stuff, and there's no awareness that we're avoiding the conflict. With practice, we can see that we're avoiding conflict. We can notice our emotions. As we build some tolerance for those emotions, we can start to have the conflict. And it's uncomfortable and it sucks at first, but we're building those foundations that are solid so that we can build our company or our team on something really solid. So I was literally just talking to a client about this before we started here. It's such a common thing, and very common with high achievers. So I don't know if that's a little too high level or not, but that's kind of how we approach it.
I saw your video with Simon Sinek. I think you did the same exercise with him, where you were asking him to feel the energy, and he said, "Oh, I don't really know how to do this stuff." That's correct, right? I saw that video. Yeah. And so my question is, and actually this comes to the closing of our episode, is the mindfulness and our self-awareness. The mindfulness is where you take a long, deep breath, you understand, yes, there is a problem. And then you understand that self-awareness, that yes, I may be the cause of this problem. Let me work on it, right? So my question is, why do people, they afraid of taking this long, deep breath and trying to feel the energy in their body, and then trying to take the full responsibility that maybe I'm the problem of this whole thing and I should find a solution to it? What is that? What happens behind the scene in the human mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people just don't really know how to do it, which is why learning mindfulness can be so powerful, because it's not that hard to learn. It's hard to consistently practice, but it's not that hard to actually learn and do, right? So it's a great place to start. I think about it in 3 pieces. So there's mindfulness, or like mindset stuff, where you're the thinking brain, right? Then there's the feeling. What emotions am I experiencing? Most people are more familiar with the head cognitive piece, a little less the emotional piece, but everybody knows like the term emotional intelligence. They may not quite know how to apply it, but they know what it is. And then there's sort of like the gut or body or somatic intelligence, which is like, what does my body know that my brain or even my emotions don't? And so we kind of have to use all three of these centers of intelligence in order to do some of this work. A lot of avoidance is related to not being able to tolerate an emotion. So if I feel scared or ashamed that it's actually the problem is all me, which is kind of the scenario that you set up, and I can't tolerate that, then I'm going to do anything possible, throwing people under the bus, avoiding the problem, causing other conflicts to distract. I'm going to unconsciously do all of these different things to avoid feeling this feeling forever.
Yeah.
And so when we can notice these feelings and notice when we're avoiding feeling them, we start to learn like everybody sort of has a category or two of emotions that they don't like to feel, that they have a low tolerance for feeling. And when we can build our tolerance for feeling those emotions, it like can completely transform our lives and our leadership. It's like the biggest game changer that I know how to help people with. But most people have never heard of this. So it's like, it's there's no way for them to do it if they haven't heard of it. Then they have to practice it and get the hang of it.
Yeah. Early days of my career, I used to take things personally a lot. And as I got older and wiser, now I think I mentioned this to you in one of our episodes. Somebody taught me this, that your best guru lies under your nose. When I didn't understand at the time, then I understood that my nose is right here, my guru is right here. The long deep breath will help me to understand where I am and what to do. What should I do next? Yeah. Very good point. Awesome. And so, Andrea, this brings to the closing of our episode. Anything you would like to share with the audience before we start?
I really like this topic. I think your article is great. I think that startup founders in particular just have such a great opportunity to differentiate themselves and to get to know their teams, avoid this problem of familiarity breeds contempt. One other resource is Esther Perel. She writes about like romantic relationships, but this is a big focus of her research and her writing in the context of personal relationships. But I like reading all kinds of books and applying them to leadership. So if your viewers are interested in that, I would suggest that they check out some of her work and see how they can apply it, maybe at home and maybe at work as well, because I think it's really interesting.
Oh my God, please do text me the book. I will add into the description.
Yeah, will do.
Awesome. Andrea, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Happy holidays.
You too. Bye.
Bye.